2 ships entered the Arctic with 129 men. Not one of them came home. In May of 1845, the British ships Erebus and Terror left England under Sir John Franklin. Their objective was one of the great geographic prizes of the 19th century, to chart the Northwest Passage through the Canadian Arctic. The ships were not fragile. Both had already survived Antarctic waters. Their hulls had been reinforced, and steam engines had been added to help them push through ice. They carried years of provisions, a library, scientific instruments, and a crew selected from the Royal Navy. 5 men returned to Britain from Greenland before the expedition entered the Arctic. The remaining 129 sailed west into Baffin Bay. Whalers saw them in July. Then the ships disappeared. For more than a decade, search parties crossed thousands of miles of frozen coastline. The first solid clues appeared on Beechy Island: winter quarters, empty food tins, and the graves of 3 sailors. The expedition had spent the winter of 1845 to 1846 there, but the evidence did not explain where the ships went next. The most important written clue was finally found in 1859, inside a stone cairn at Victory Point on King William Island. It was one sheet of paper carrying 2 very different messages. The first, dated May 1847, said the ships had been trapped in ice since September 1846. It ended with 2 confident words, "All well." Around the margin, a second message had been added in April 1848. Franklin had died on June 11, 1847. 9 officers and 15 men were already dead. Erebus and Terror had been abandoned on April 22. The surviving 105 men, led by Francis Crozier and James Fitzjames, were starting south toward the Back River. That decision turned a naval disaster into a march with almost no chance of success. The men faced hundreds of miles of broken ice, exposed coast, and Arctic weather. They hauled boats and equipment across land while weakened by hunger and disease. Searchers later found skeletons, books, clothing, silverware, and a ship's boat mounted on a heavy sledge. No record explains how far the main group reached. Inuit witnesses preserved information that British investigators were slow to accept. They described starving white men moving south, bodies along the route, and a ship that sank near the coast. Explorer John Ray also reported Inuit testimony that some of the final survivors had resorted to cannibalism. Victorian Britain reacted with outrage. Later archaeological work found cut marks on human bones, supporting the core of those accounts. For generations, the 2 ships remained missing. Then, in 2014, a search guided in part by Inuit knowledge located HMS Erebus. 2 years later, HMS Terror was found in remarkably intact condition. The discoveries answered the question of where the ships ended their journeys. They did not reveal a complete account of what happened after abandonment. Several forces probably acted together. Scurvy, tuberculosis, pneumonia, and other illnesses may have weakened the crew. Lead exposure from plumbing or food containers was once treated as a central explanation, although later research suggests it cannot explain everything. Poor nutrition, extreme cold, and the physical cost of hauling heavy loads would have compounded every mistake. The ice itself held the expedition in place for 2 winters. There is also a deeper failure in the story. The expedition carried advanced British technology but had limited ability to live from the Arctic environment. Inuit communities had generations of knowledge about travel, clothing, food, and sea ice. The officers of Erebus and Terror entered that world with the confidence of an empire and a supply system that could not rescue them once the ships stopped moving. The Franklin mystery is no longer a blank space. We know where the ships lie. We know when they were abandoned, and we know that the survivors attempted to walk south. But we still do not have their final narrative. Somewhere between the Victory Point note and the last scattered remains, 105 individual stories vanished into the Arctic. The ice kept the ships, the land kept the evidence, and the people who already knew the region kept memories that eventually helped the search find its way back.